Hi, welcome to Tea Break, Trans in the City, latest and new podcast. This is the fourth talk for today's event, and two special guests are Erin Uritus and Mossiah. So let's start with you, Erin. Could you just explain who you are, what you do, and why you're here today?
Absolutely. I'm delighted to be here. First of all, thank you. So I'm Erin Uritus, CEO of Out and Equal Workplace Advocates, and I use she, her pronouns. I live in Washington, D.C., but we are a global organization, and we're here doing this amazing event this week.
Yeah. And yourself?
I'm Mossiah. My pronouns are they, them. I'm a product director in JP Morgan. I'm also the co-lead for the Gender Expansive Council, also on the board of Out and Equal as well. And I am coming here from New York.
Amazing. I mean, it's great to see, two people like yourselves, high up in management, exec level, and you're attending this event. Mm-hmm. Is it the first time you've attended a Trans in the City event?
It is, yeah.
And what do you think of it so far?
I think it's incredible. I think the conversations we have observed and been part of are really focused on some exciting not just information exchange, but connection and coming together in community in a way that I think it could not be more important right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in the UK there's an organisation as well known and as big as Trans in the City for doing these kind of things. Bringing like a lot of trans people together and business leaders in the same environment.
Absolutely.
And it kind of, that issue around do we have enough trans and non-binary people in businesses at the executive level? I mean, Chris, what do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that answer is very clear. It's no. It's just a necessary need at the moment. It's a way for us to really hone in on a different perspective, having trans and non-binary folks at the table at a senior level. We're very well qualified to do it. It's just the visibility to be able to get into that seat. I think on top of that as well is really identifying the need of a business to want to serve everybody, right? And if you don't have the perspective of everybody at the table, you are actually kind of doing a disservice to the company.
So you talk about everybody at the table, and it brings in that question of how do we get diversity and equality, equity into businesses, so that people who are trans, non-binary, or any other kind of minority, how do we get them to the point where they are, accepted for who they are and can move up the ladder? What do you think, Erin, on that question?
I think, first of all, if we're only looking through the lens of diversity and equality or diversity and equity and not also through the lens of belonging, then this is going to be a numbers game where we will not achieve the real goal. And the goal of organizations should be attracting and retaining the best talent. And I think what that means, and what we've seen a lot of progress in, is when companies look at this the right way, they are casting a net wide, they are valuing multiple experiences, including and especially of the trans and non-binary community, who bring real strengths of leadership that are unique and clear. And I think when companies do that, and beyond even going after talent and hiring, it's about creating what we call it Out and Equal, cultures of belonging. And the business of belonging is like what you do to get those cultures so beyond policies and benefits and people being able to check boxes. Are these workplaces where the organizational culture is such that your talent is going to stay and thrive? And that's really, I think, very exciting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's key that you can retain, talent and attract talent, right from the, early careers kind of level, and keep those people in your business. I'm not saying people should stay at the same company forever, but, I think it's really important to attract people and make sure that they can progress.
Yeah.
And have that diversity across the board.
Absolutely. Promotion is key to that, really.
Yeah.
Right, because you can bring them in and you can retain them, but if they're still at the lower levels, then that's not tackling the visibility that is needed in the community. Specifically, one of the reasons why so many attacks are happening is because we're not in the boardrooms and we're not at the table.
Yeah, and we've seen, you know, what's been going on in the States recently with a lot of states.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you probably can't speak specifically about any individual states, but you know, when I look at what's happened in Florida, because I used to live there, you know, I wouldn't be able to go back now. I mean, and that's really kind of disturbing for me. As someone who used to live there, I now wouldn't feel safe there because of, you know, some of the laws that have come in. And I'm kind of, you know, how are we going to get to the point where those things are reversed back to some kind of, you know, normality? Because it's really getting extreme in some cases.
I think not fleeing, right? We still have siblings that are there in all of those places where these attacks are happening, and fleeing is leaving them stranded, and we don't want to. That's sending the wrong message, in my opinion, right? I think that standing with them and letting them know that they're safe with us, and a way to fight and vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a way to really tackle the issues that that are happening right now, is really standing up and fighting.
Yeah.
And I would just add to that, which is, and I totally agree with that. I think getting really smart and strategic with an eye towards, again, it's not just the talent living in Florida, right? Or moving from California to Texas if you're a company like HP or Apple or Dell. It is also remembering that our trans and non-binary employees and leaders also come from families who are allies, have kids that are coming out at greater numbers. And when you look at the impact that this kind of nonsense legislative, you know, the legislative attempts to create such huge division in the face of what is really possible and good for states in terms of good for business, I think you know, there are some serious efforts to combat these legislative efforts, and businesses are playing a huge part in it. I think people standing up, if they are LGBTQ executives, and going to their state houses to lobby, working with their companies to say, we're here, you know, we're here and we're contributing, we're a valuable part of this company. I think that is, largely speaking, how we are looking at some of how to combat what is happening in the States.
Yeah, do you see that as something that leaders have to do? Or is it more of a grassroots within those companies? Because, you know, within a lot of the companies there are employee resource groups, you know, for LGBT employees, and they tend to do a lot of work to try and, you know, make positive change in those businesses. But from my experience, sometimes you need to have the leaders kind of take control, and, you know, and have it come from the top down, because you know, to show leadership,
absolutely,
and encourage, you know, what's going on in some of the ERGs.
I think yes, top down, but yes, also bottom up.
So both,
both coming from both angles.
I think that's probably the right approach.
And
you wanted to talk about intersectionality, Erin?
Sure. I think so. You know, as we evolve and look towards powerful ways we can push forward, become more visible, and make our identities and stories real. Where we see a lot of progress in really exciting ways are when companies, organizations in particular, are beginning to align or blend and provide opportunity to people who happen to carry multiple identities, so that we are not only representing, or at the very worst feeling like we're poster children for any one of these things, and that once our month is over, we're done, right? I think there's some really important, there's power in, first of all, providing a platform, because we carry multiple, you know, identities, so that people can connect over their stories. I think that's just it's really important. And you're a great example of being, I think, a shining light and visible across so many spectrums.
I carry quite a few intersectional identities, and I don't dim any of my light on either of those identities. And I think it's very important for me to make one community of one of my identities, understand the community of another one of my identities, because that's how we win a fight, is when we come together.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, we should all be allies for each other,
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
right?
We have to be.
Mm-hmm.
We do. So are you hopeful for the future? I mean, do you see positive change coming in? You know, I know you're doing a lot. It sounds like you're doing a lot anyway.
Yeah, I am hopeful, and I think we have to be hopeful,
Yeah.
because if we stop fighting in light of what's pushing against us right now, I think we could lose important progress. It's happening you know, around the world, certainly in the States in some respects. There is real danger of that. I've got 2 kids. One of them came out a few years ago as non-binary, and you know, when I think about them in the future, they're also half Arab, and I want all of us to live in a world where we are valued and that our kids don't give up hope for their future. So I think a lot of visible trans, visible non-binary people, and whoever can come out and be out authentic, you know, as joyful as we can be given some of the challenges that certain folks face. It's important. It lifts up hope for everybody, and that's we can't not have that.
Yeah, I am also very hopeful of the future. I think the now is terrifying.
It is,
right?
Yeah.
But when we think of the numbers, the statistics, 1 out of every 10 millennial is identifies within the LGBTQ space, right? With adding the plus, and the Gen Z is 1 out of every 5. Right, and so the demographics are on our side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these kids are fearless. So I think we'll be just fine in the future. It's just we have to keep fighting so that they will be able to fight and lead in the
So
future.
do you think the next generation of people coming through are going to be even more fierce?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's how it feels to me. Like people. I'm in my 50s.
Mm.
People younger than me in the 20s, 30s. They do not give you any excuses.
Yeah.
They're coming through really strong, and I think that's really my kind of hope for the future. That the younger people, a lot younger than me, are making those huge strides.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I would add there,
And they have no fear.
Mm-hmm.
it's true, and it is incredible, and it's really inspiring.
Yeah.
I think what I would also raise up here, though, and I think we have to be really careful and pay attention to, fierceness is important.
Mm-hmm.
Resilience is important.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But in this day and age, when there's so much fear, what we are unfortunately being positioned to do is a lot of volume just to counter what's
Mm-hmm.
going on out there. So, how hard we can work, how much we can do. And I think what we can't forget, because these two things have to coexist, and I would want our young people to also know this, learn this, watch it being done, is that if we don't also pause when we can to listen and to make sure that our allies are with us, right, is just, we can do a lot of pronoun training. We can be out there doing these trainings in the world, but there is just a lot of noise in the system and a lot of fear in the system. And some of this in the work to get to hearts and minds where people can sustain the fight moving forward, we have to listen and we have to pause. Are you with us? Is there something you heard in that training? I want to give space. Do you have concerns? Do you have questions?
Yeah.
If we don't do that, I think what we risk is also not what we want.
Yeah. And it's important too to rest.
It's very important, to take breaks when you need to. Yeah.
Rest and dance.
Yes.
Rest and
So rest.
rest
Celebrate.
and celebrate
Yeah.
what makes this community so special. We cannot forget that. It's a huge source of strength for us. So being together, I think in the States, some of this nonsense about prohibiting drag and clubs and all that, it's like, I think we are recentering a bit when you are afraid things are going to be taken away, even like in those social spaces. Hang on a second, you are not going to take that away from us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, it's great having this chat with you. Thanks so much for
Lovely.
Thank
We're
you
so
for
coming
happy.
and doing
We're
this.
honored. Thanks for having
Yeah.
us.
hopefully see you later on.
And
Yeah.
sure.
congratulations
For
on an
sure.
incredible, the Trans in the City event this week has just been
Yeah.
phenomenal, and
Yeah.
bravo to all of you. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, thank
We're
you. Yeah,
glad to
it's
be here.
really great to come and do these events because they
Yeah.
are really so important. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
what
so
you
thank
do.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.